You shouldn't be scared of AI writing books because it's crap at writing books, but it's good if you're working really hard with it to help you craft a book, which is great for us as writers, because you need to be a storyteller and a writer.
Hey authors, this is Ferol Vernon from the Written Word Media Pod. And this week we've got something a little different for you. So this past week, I was down with hundreds of authors at the Novelist Inc. conference. People call it NINC. So NINC is a member-only event where authors have to have achieved certain earning requirements. So they have to have some kind of financial success in order to attend. And this is exciting because you get to be at a conference with hundreds of authors, all of whom have been successful, and they're trading tips, sharing themes, figuring out what works. So it's a really inspiring event to be at because there's such a high concentration of successful authors in one place, and generally a great group of people. Now, I thought it would be interesting to sit down with my friend James Blatch to talk about this. So James is a NINC author himself, the owner of a self-publishing formula, host of the Indie Writers podcast, former reporter at the BBC, and just all-around great person. And James and I grabbed a few minutes in the lobby of NINC, right behind the woman that's selling us timeshares, and we talked through the takeaways from NINC, the themes that we were hearing, so that all you listeners could get a sense of what was happening at NINC without actually traveling to Florida. We talked about AI, we talked about translation, we talked about all kinds of other hot button issues related to audiobooks, ebooks, everything. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation that I had with James Blatch. Take a listen. Hello, and welcome to the Written Word Media Podcast. Today, I am here at NINC, the Novelist Incorporated conference, with my good friend, James Blatch. How you doing, James?
I'm really good, Ferol. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's fun. We are actually here in the lobby. You can hear there's hundreds of authors here talking about all kinds of things. And today, James, I just wanted to talk through what are some of the conversations that are happening at NINC and what are the topics so that the listeners to the pod get a sense of like what's happening at these conferences and what's going on. Yeah. So curious from your standpoint, what have you been hearing? What's been like the hot topic here at NINC?
I think for people watching, the first thing we should point out is there was a timeshare advert behind. So makes it look like we're about to sell timeshares in this company. Yeah. We're not, but she's very aggressive though. If you do come to this hotel, you've got to walk past her quickly. Yeah, she's really aggressive. I come from the UK. It doesn't matter. Come back. I'm not going to ever buy your timeshare. Come back. Yes. Now, I think, you always come to these conferences and there's like normally one or two buzz things that everyone's talking about. So I'm trying to tune into that. I've been here since Saturday with some of the authors coming here early. And so far, it's been a lot of talk about Facebook ads, which is a subject that's always around. But we've had this big dip like a year ago. I remember November last year, I think we had our worst month ever. Yeah. It was just tanking and no one seemed to know why. We knew there were some changes under the bonnet. We knew that Facebook was rolling out Advantage Plus, their kind of AI targeting rather than the old-fashioned targeting. I actually went to a session with Facebook in the summer. They very rarely talk to anyone. I don't know if you know people at Meta, but I know, I know no one. Suddenly out of the blue got invited. And they were saying, yeah, targeting, we're moving away from that. AI is amazing. And you should pixel your web page, your landing page, so that the campaign's talking to itself and getting all this information. Well, we send our traffic to Amazon. So that would mean putting a landing page in between our advert and Amazon, which you can do, but traditionally we know that costs a few clicks. And I think in between the lines of what we heard from them was the fact that their targeting no longer works because all the privacy rules changed after Cambridge Analytica and all those scandals, and they just simply don't have that data anymore. They can't collect it anymore. iOS turned it off, turned off their stream of information, whereas in the bad old days, the Wild West, every what hair color you had, how children you had was all there. So that's why you have to use Advantage Plus. It didn't, for us at least, I think for most authors, it was a horrible summer last summer, and going into the winter, and in November, in America, Black Friday and all that stuff, and it's competitive, but it was worse than ever. And then coming into this conference, the conversation is, cost per click suddenly going down. I mean, I'm getting 4 pence cost per click, so that's about 6 cents on my current campaign in the UK. I'm getting about 9 or 10 pence in Germany. They're the best figures I've had for a long time. I think other people are feeling that as well. So I have no clue what's happened, except whether they've just refined things or whether potentially what's happening, Claire, my podcast co-host, pointed this out. She's starting to see organically people's adverts on her timeline. So we're wondering whether Meta, realizing they're not doing a good job for their customers and advertising, is starting to give some organic push to your campaigns on top of the impressions they send out to your spend to give you a little bit of a help. And so they'll take a hit on that because that's resources and, real estate on the page. But if it's delivering more benefit to us, they don't want to lose their spend.
Yeah.
People. So maybe that's happening. That's one of the conversations having around here.
Yeah.
And the other one is AI, and I don't know where to start or finish on that one.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting conversation for sure. You mentioned something about Germany that I wanted to dig into a little bit. So we had a conversation earlier where you said some of your translation stuff is starting to hit. Maybe tell us a little bit about that. How's that going?
Yeah, so I only have really 2 novels and a novella, and I give the novella away. It's not in KU. So I basically have 2 books. And for me, I talk about publishing all the time. And I started a publishing company, which I've sold and I still work for. So I publish and sell books, but just not my own to any great volume.
Yeah.
But I've always been proud of the fact that I've made a profit from my 1 or 2 books, even if it was like $1,200 the first year, but that pays a utility bill in my house.
Yeah.
For me, that's a big win. And that's exciting when I'm teaching other authors and they get to that point where suddenly Amazon's paying them some money every month instead of them buying toothbrushes and everything. It's great. So I've always worked really hard at my books. One of the big things that happened to me was, German translation. So I used a human translator for my 2 books, my 2 main novels. Launched them into Germany, and they were immediately more profitable than they were ever in the US or the UK.
And that's fascinating.
Yeah. And I'm military thriller, and I think maybe Germany, it was on the front line of the Cold War. So, and the Cold War base. So maybe that's a reason. But Facebook advertising is where it was 9 years ago. There's not that many people advertising. There's still millions, but nothing like the saturation we have in the US and UK. So bang for buck was more, reach was more. And that was exciting for me. So I got to this point when I was looking at coming to NINC this year, thinking, probably won't come as an industry guest for various reasons this year. What if I qualify? And I did. I looked at the figures, and my books are making 5,000, 2 books making 5,000, whatever the figures were. So I've qualified as a profitable author here, and that is down to German translations. Now, since then, I've been using Scribe Shadow.
Yeah, I spoke with Scribe Shadow earlier. Tell me about that service, because it seems like a really cool thing.
It's amazing. Yeah, it really is. And we're hearing examples of people putting stuff in, putting it to a German speaker saying, this one's human, this one's Scribe Shadow, which one's which, and they're struggling to tell the difference. So it's really come on very quickly. That's the thing about AI. You wait a few weeks and everything changes. A year ago probably wasn't, you'd get too many bad reviews. It's not 100%, that's for sure. And probably I'd still use a human. But I'm pretty certain the vast majority of human translations are now done as a copy edit of an AI translation. Yeah. I think if you're a human translator, you're probably not going to start from scratch anymore.
Yeah. And for those listeners who don't know, Scribe Shadow is an AI generated translation service where you can upload your book in English and get a variety of languages out, right?
Yeah. So German, Spanish, common Spanish, which is the European Spanish, Italian, Dutch, French, and I've got my books in all of those now.
So in your conversations, and you're involved with the author community a lot, what's the take on like translations and AI? Like, are people saying, oh, that's cool, it's a low-cost solution? Are people a little hesitant? Like, what's your sense?
I think for most people I'm speaking to, it's a no-brainer, because the cost of a human translation is, my books cost me 3,000, I think, 2,000 plus 1,000, 2,000 for translation plus 1,000. That's pounds.
Yeah.
That's best part of $5,000.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Not that long ago, it was $10,000, by the way, to do per title. So, and if you've got 10 books.
Yeah, it's very expensive proposition.
So this is a no-brainer, even if it's not as good as humans. A subscription, you can start at about, I think $99 a month is enough to get most of your books done. It's a very low-cost way of doing it. Yeah. So the conversations I've been having, we have a little mastermind group from our Indie Writers Club podcast. Yeah. We do a little once a month. And the discussions there have been about how you implement it. Do you translate the title? Do you leave the title in English? There's been a debate about that. So yeah, it's taking off. There is still, of course, some people who just say, and rightly, they worry about their brand reputation. If they're using an AI and it's getting some negative reviews, that potentially damages the brand if they've got other books.
Yep.
But for me, and for most people, it's been liberating. And it's a bit like the whole indie revolution from 2009, democratizing, So getting into the German market is within the reach of everyone in here.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And curious to me how you picked Germany, because obviously for the content of your books, maybe it's a little bit more relevant, but as you being a UK author, there's a lot of other options for you. How did you come to Germany?
Yeah, I think it was a natural choice because of the books, because of my books, military thrillers, and we're a strange bunch. Men of my age interested in military aviation have a lot in common with the Dutch and the Germans. So if you go to an air show, there's a lot of Germans and Dutch and British there. Once you get to Greece and Spain, not so much. It's not so much a thing. So that's my reason. I understand from friends that romance is doing really well in both France and Germany. My books have not really worked in France to the same way. Interesting. So maybe I haven't got the marketing right yet, or it's just not the market for it. Romance in Germany is going really well. And there's a growing market there, people coming into KU in Germany. So
interesting. And so when you translate into German, do you have to translate the ads as well? Like, do you have to write the ad copy, and how do you get that done?
Again, it's AI. So I use Claude nearly all the time, but other people have their preferences. And it is incredible, isn't it? You think about the fact that you've got your book, your translated manuscripts, and then you sit there. Now, had I got that from a human 5 years ago, I'd think, well, I need someone in German to tell me about the title and the copyright notice and about the author and all this stuff. Now you have Claude.
Yeah.
And my big thing about AI, my one thing I want to say about AI is that AI is as good as you put into it. Like everything else in life, it's not a one-touch solution. You press a button. So you're doing the about the author, you're doing the blurb. You don't just paste in your UK blurb and expect the results to be right. You ask it what it thinks of that UK blurb. You ask it what it thinks about that in the German market. You ask it to make suggestions about language, and it won't tell you unless you ask these questions. Once you've asked all those questions, particularly aviation, there's particular words that don't translate easily unless you tell the AI, this is about aeroplane. It's not, you use the same words in different contexts. So you do all that work in, you will get a good blurb out. And and the same with the advertising copy. It's not necessarily going to be a direct translation, but I sit there with Claude and we go backwards and forwards. I mean, it's like my friend now, Claude. I've got a friend here.
James and Claude, right?
Yeah, James and Claude, Sounds German as well, doesn't it? Right. Yeah. I've got a friend here, Cecilia Mecca writes as historical romance, Bella Michael's romance. She has a AI built into ChatGPT, an AI assistant called Pedro that she's created. She programmed it, told it what she wanted. Pedro tells her every day of the week what she should be doing, giving her some marketing structure, and she talks to Pedro all the time. I think she's having an affair with Pedro, but it's got to her husband at some point. But yeah.
Okay, so that's really interesting about the translations. Another place that there's a lot of buzz about, at least that I've heard with AI, is around audio narration.
Yeah.
And there's a few companies that are doing that, and we were just talking to some folks right before this. What are your thoughts there, and what have you seen and heard here at the conference?
Yeah, so different levels. So first of all, KDB have their press a button and it will be done.
That's right.
Service. Not heard good things about that.
Yeah.
So I've heard people saying they'd rather not have the audiobook than have it done in that way. So that seems to be the very basic way which people will do at home. If they, if they have a disability, a hearing disability, or a sight disability, for instance, they can use text to speech. And there's quite a few programs, Speechify and stuff like that. And I think even Word does it, right? You can do it in Word. So that's the very basic. The KDP one seems to be a little bit up from that, but not massively. And then you have a jump to organizations like 11labs.com. There's Hume, who I haven't used before, but I was talking today. And that service, which is called Spoken. Yes, you and I are both having conversations about Spoken, which seems to be like a front-end package. I would say about 11 Labs, incredibly clever. And we're speaking to those guys. They're going to be in London, I think, in June. But I'm not sure it's as user-friendly as it could be. And I'm quite technical, but I still have struggled and have given up a few times. But talking over there to these guys, I think Spoken will be the interface we're looking for. And it uses 11 Labs in the background as its engine. So yeah, I'm excited. I need to hear it. I mean, I've heard his sample, which sounds great.
Yep.
The samples I've put in of my book have not been great, even in 11 Labs. So you kind of feel, after you put 2 pages in, and you have to go in and phonetically spell some words because it's just not pronouncing them correctly. If you've got a 70,000 word novel.
Yeah, especially like if you're a fantasy author or something and you've got crazy names and stuff like that, I can see that being very, very difficult.
Yeah. Although, who knows how they pronounce those words in fantasy novels. So there's probably no right or wrong way.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I had a lunch earlier, and there's a conversation around it with a narrator. and she was saying she would never license her voice. Right? I thought that was a very interesting opinion. Do you think that we're going to see that? Because there's a lot of audiobook narration companies here. Do you think that we're going to see people doing voice licensing, or do you think there's always going to be a spot for the actual human actor doing the audiobooks?
I'm being attacked by Mozzie. We are in a blip at the moment where AI is a new technology. It's a little bit witchcraft for some people. And I think people saying, I will never do this with AI, 18 months time, that'll be gone. She will be licensing her voice. That's my prediction on this.
Okay.
So I spoke to a woman in London in June at our conference, who at that point was the #1 rated licensed voice on 11 Labs. And I won't name her, but I'll tell you the figures. She was making £4,000 a month.
Wow. Just on her voice.
Her voice, she had this cut crystal glass English accent.
Yeah.
She described herself as an English flower or something like that. And if you're looking to get a book audio narrated, that's a very tempting thing, this sort of perfect received pronunciation English accent. So it worked perfectly. She put in 8-10 hours. I'm not sure how many hours she put in of her voice to get it right.
Yeah.
Did a lot of the marketing within 11 Labs around that and making £4,000 a month. So you tell me whether that narrator should be licensing their voice or not. Right. Because she can go to bed at night and be earning money and wake up in the morning. Surely that's what we all want to be doing.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So what other trends? I mean, AI has been certainly a hot button topic. And I feel like I've talked to a bunch of folks with opinions that are all over the map around. But it does feel to me like that AI is the devil. AI is going to take everything away. That voice has been softened a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my view is I'm very pro AI. First of all, I like new technology, so I'm quite excited about it and using that. But just I see it simply as the next revolution of technology. In the same way that we had this discussion, when the electric typewriter came along, apparently authors didn't like it because it sort of reduced the bar to entry of writing, and they're worried about their club being disrupted. So that happened with the electric typewriter. I can definitely remember designers being very snobby about Photoshop. When Photoshop came in the 90s, they would say, oh, that's Photoshopped. I never used Photoshop. I can guarantee that type thing. And of course, that's exactly the language being used by some designers. That's an AI design. I will never use it. Well, of course, it's nonsense, isn't it? Because it's just the next technology. It's making their life easier. It's making it quicker, more productive. So I think certainly in 5 years' time, probably less than that, they'll all be using AI. And this will no longer be a discussion. The one area, the dark area of this, which I do get a bit annoyed about, is some romance authors. Now, I'll give you an example. A romance author, because there's a bit of a witch hunt within romance in particular, people using AI. They will be taken down by other authors and readers in some cases. So I know a romance author who recently put in 3 covers in a series for her 4th book to teach Midjourney what sort of cover she wanted. And then Midjourney produced this most amazing book 4 cover. Yeah. She can't use it because she's terrified that she'll have people pointing at her saying she's a witch. She's used AI.
You're saying like the social
on TikTok.
Yes.
It's an AI cover. Don't ever buy a book from this woman. Like that is happening, and it's disgusting. Yeah. So she's had to give that cover to a cover designer, say, can you make a analog version of this, please? And pay £700 to do that.
Wow.
And that's wrong, in my view. I think cover designers just need to embrace the new technology and change the way they work. And that's how it is now. Of course, there's question marks over how they were taught, and I understand that. But
and licensing and ownership, I think those are thorny questions.
Yes, they are, but they'll be resolved. And, we all use Google, right? First of all, if you're using Google, you're using AI now anyway. But we all use Google. Elizabeth Ann West is a great thought leader in this subject in our community. She pointed out that Google swept the entire internet, stole everything, and indexed it all and built its search engine, and nobody blinks an eyelid. No batted an eyelid, right? And we all use it. And it's been a tool that's benefited humanity. Yeah. Every day in the newspapers, there's a story about AI benefiting humanity, particularly in the health sector, discovering cancers. And, so I'm a fan. I hope this is a blip. And if you are the sort of person who points the finger, says, and publicly shames people for using AI, have a word with yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Great opinion there, James. I like it.
It was an opinion.
Yeah. What else have you been hearing? We kind of talked a little bit about translations and AI, and that's been certainly hot topics. Is there any other trends that you picked up while you've been here?
I haven't, not so far. It's been a little touch on it. We've only been to a couple of sessions so far. A little bit trad orientated. The first couple of sessions I went to, NINC has often been that. Although there is a crossover because a lot of the trad publishers are now doing indie style sprayed edges and, special editions and stuff. So I think that area actually, sprayed edges, spreads, I believe they're called now, and special editions and direct marketing and Kickstarter. That's an area I think it's going to be on the rise, is on the rise.
Yeah, sure.
So understanding it's another ecosystem for us to learn and to market and to manage. But that's something I'm looking forward to learning more about while I'm here.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, James, thank you so much for sitting here and talking to me in our lobby. And hopefully we didn't buy a timeshare in the middle of our conversation.
She'll spot us in a minute. We're seated down, so she'll put her chair up here. You're a very professional podcaster.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. James, what do you need to plug? Tell us about the conference. What can you tell our audience about what you got going on?
Yeah, so the big thing is our conference. So every year in London, we have self-publishing show live. A lot of the people who are here will come to London. Yeah. We have the same weather, by the way, and you were there, weren't you? Yeah. So we always have the same weather they have in Florida. It's beautifully and amazingly, it's sunny always for our conference. So guarantee. Yeah. 2 days. First day, more of a plenary day. So everyone's in the same room. We'll have some big talkers on some motivational stuff, but also craft. We've got a good talk on craft with TD Donnelly, a Hollywood screenwriter, is going to talk about type, structure, and character. Day 2 workshops. So you'll pick and choose what you're going to do. We're definitely going to have Amazon ads and Facebook ads, level 1 and level 2. So if you're beginning, you'll have a workshop to go to. If you're already using it, you want to go to the next level, you have a different one to go to. We're going to have lots of AI stuff. So I'm talking to some of the guys to do some workshops for us on how to use pseudo write, for instance. That's a bit of a using it to write, but it's a partner. And a bit like how I started this conversation, you shouldn't be scared of AI writing books because it's crap at writing books, but it's good if you're working really hard with it to help you craft a book, which is great for us as writers, that you need to be a storyteller and a writer. So we're going to have that focus. So you can probably put the link under the show.
Link will be in the show notes. Yeah, sure.
We'd love to see people there. And
All right. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, James. And thank you all for listening.